7 o'clock, let's go ahead and get started, please. Would everyone rise for the pledge of allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Just a reminder, if you have a cell phone, please turn it off or silence it. Let's go ahead and get started with the agenda. Roll call, Callie?
Donna Hedges.
Here.
Cheryl Armstrong.
Here.
Heidi Larson.
Here.
Ashley Overton. Here. Erica Weaver. Here. Jacob Uphoff.
Here.
Gail Ryder.
Here. Item number 2, reception of visitors. Agenda visitors, 2.1A, recognition of bionic donations.
So I just want to take an opportunity to recognize community organizations, businesses, and individuals who have given to Bionic. The Believe It or Not, I Care mentoring program at Neptune High School, and they are here today to be recognized on this lovely evening. So I'm super thankful that you came out. So first off is Rotary Club. Noah Olson, if you want to come up. They gave a donation for $500, and they continue to donate to Bionic every year, so we just really thank you. And we'll just get here and then we'll give them applause. For the Exchange Club, they gave a donation, and I haven't seen the two gentlemen here yet, but Dave Cohen and Steve Martin, and they gave $250 for Bionic. Next is Jackson Tucker, if you would come on up. This is for recognizing First Mid Bank. They gave $1,000 towards the Bionic program, so thank you so much. Next is TravelSigns.com. Chad Larson is here to recognize. They gave $250. Willarette Self Storage. Dean could not be here today, but they gave $250 for Bionic to help support the program. Niemeyer Kubota, Tom, if you come up, Tom Niemeyer's here, who also gave $250 to help support Bionic. SC3F Wealth Management Group, Chris Considine and his group gave $250 to also help support Bionic. Megan Stewart is here, thank you for donating from Tangles for $100. And the Niemeyer Farm gave a donation as well, and Lindsay and Kurt Niemeyer couldn't be here tonight. If you could help, just thank these individuals. Currently, there are 400 students in the program being served, and we are super thankful for you investing in students in our community. We are really appreciative.
Yes.
And so if you'd stay for one picture real quick. I should have said it ahead of time, I'm sorry.
Actually, congratulations, you had to come afterwards. A little bit more room.
Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Item 2.2, non-agenda. I think one of the speakers is out getting his picture taken, so we'll start with the other one. Brandon Stewart.
I'm going to yield my time to Chad Larson as soon as he gets done with the camera. Sorry, I'm getting my picture taken.
All right, you're on.
Good evening. Full disclosure, my name is Chad Larson. I'm Dr. Heidi Larson's husband. I'm also a citizen of the Neptune School District, but most importantly, I'm a father of 2 that are currently in high school and a son that just graduated. So I'm going to speak to you today about the report card data, the Illinois report card data. It's some organization that we did to it back in the election when we compared our school performance to those of the other schools within the Apollo Conference. But let me give a little background on why I'm interested in this. So in one of my children's freshman year, so let me back up just a little bit more. Forever in our relationship, she's the academics, I'm the athletics. I never went to one parent-teacher conference. I didn't have to. But one of my children's freshman year, Hyde insisted that I come into a meeting. And so I attended a meeting about my kid's math class. And in that class, and I didn't quite follow what was all going on, but I sat and listened and take notes, paid attention. And I learned that it was self-paced learning. I learned that it was Khan Academy, so that was done online. I learned that it was a blended class, meaning that it was honor students, regular students, and special ed students, all in one class. And I got several compliments of my child. And one of them said, yeah, he's readily available to help other students, and it's good to hear. But in the end, I sat there. And the question I had was, when do you go to the whiteboard to teach my child? Now, that semester, after that semester, things changed. But what I felt like is that my child was being experimented on. There was no notice given to us that we were changing curriculum, that it was going to be self-paced, that it was going to be online, done by Khan Academy. None of that. My child showed up their freshman year, and it was completely different. So I'm pretty passionate about this. So back during the election, I put together, let me get my notes out here. I organized the Illinois report card data. And I was introduced to that. And what I wanted to say was like, where is our academic performance against other schools that are comparable to us, right? And what better way of doing that is to look at our own athletic conference, the Apollo Conference. So I looked at the Illinois Science Assessment, the SAT Math score, the English SAT score, and other characteristics of the district. And during the election, I produced this same sheet. And at the time, for the Illinois Science Assessment, we were in last place. For the math, SAT Math, we were in last place. For the SAT English, we were in last place. I updated it with this year's report card from the November meeting. Because I was very interested when the report card data came up on what that presentation was going to say. For the science assessment, we are in last place. For the math assessment, we are in last place. And for the English assessment, we are again in last place. Let me just talk about math. I'll come back sometime and talk about the others, but math is very important to me. Let me run through this. Muhammad Seymour, 58% of the students are proficient in math. Mount Zion, 40%. The state average is 26.7. Taylorville's 22%. Effingham's 19, Charleston's 12. We are 10% proficient in math. That means 1 out of 10 students are proficient in math when they took this. If you look at go back some years, back in 2019, we were 35.2, above the state average. Go back to 2018, we were 26.2, which is now about the state average. We're trending the wrong direction. Now, I do have copies, anybody wants to see this. I'd be glad to share it. The backside of this, I compared this year to last year. Again, I'll just focus on math. Last year we were 12.1%, now we're 9.9. I actually rounded up to 10, 9.9%. Down 18% from the year before. The state average, 28.8 to 26.7 is down 7.3%. Completely different. So anybody that wants this, you can scan the barcode here. It'll take you directly to the page. You can look at every school in our Apollo Conference and compare the test scores. And please, and I mean this very sincerely, if any of you see an error in my data, please let me know. I want it to be right. I spent a lot of time looking at this. Right? I want it to be correct. I don't want to misrepresent anything. So back to the November meeting, I need to get my tea here because I'm getting old. So I wrote this up at the November meeting when the data came up.
Mr. Larson, I don't know, you're
Is my
well,
time up?
you're well over 3 minutes. I'll give
Okay.
you another minute. Let's go ahead and wrap.
Okay, I'm on Brandon's time though right now, right?
We don't yield time to other people. That's
You
not.
do it all the time, you've done it in several meetings.
Not since I've been president.
So what?
You got,
Did
you
you
got
change
about,
the
you got
policy?
another minute left.
Did you
Mr.
cite that
Larson,
policy for me?
Don't please me, did you change the policy?
please. Okay, the policy on the agenda, if you can look copy, it says no person will be allowed to speak more than 3 minutes. It's on the agenda, it's
You yield
printed.
time all the time.
Mr. Larson, you can take another minute, or we can
Please,
just stop.
please let me speak. Just, I'm
Okay.
gonna speak about you from the meeting last meeting.
Oh.
Here's your quote. "But if little Johnny isn't in the building, then the quality of the instruction matters less. The higher the chronic absenteeism, the more the drag on the other numbers because those kids aren't in the building often enough to get the benefit of instruction. So when it comes time to test little Johnny, he doesn't score very well because he missed 35% of the instructional days." Direct quote from the video. Here's the data, chronic truancy rate, which means you missed 5% or more school days without a valid excuse. District average is 18.2, state average is 19.9. We're better than the state average. For chronic absenteeism, missing 10% or more school days in a year, with or without a valid excuse, the district is 31%, state average is 28.3. We are 2.7 points off the state average, but we're 16.8 points off in our math scores. The math doesn't compute, no pun intended. Now, what's interesting is that you gave a statistic, Dale, 35% of the institutional days. How did you come up with that number?
Your time frame, Mr. Larson. I'm not interested in having a debate with you if you want to speak.
I don't get to ask you a question, how you came up with data that you presented at a board meeting. You don't want it? Well, let me see, like 176 school days, so 10% is 17.6. So you presented something, I don't know where you got it from, but I'd be interested in learning more. One last thing, and then I'll yield. 191 seniors took the SAT. 10% are proficient in math. That's 19 students, 19.1. Dr. Hill, can I ask, how many students are enrolled in
No, we're not
honors
doing that,
math?
Mr. Larson.
Why?
Mr. Larson, we're not doing that. This is not a town hall meeting. You don't get to call people out like that. Your time has expired, and then almost double of that. I'm gonna ask you to be respectful of everybody else in the room and go by the rules and have a seat. Thank you.
I
Please.
wouldn't mind listening to the rest
Yeah,
of like.
like,
I-
you-
I-
Then you guys can take that outside if you want, but not in this room where we're trying to have a meeting of the Board of Education. Please.
It's more
This is
education.
important information.
I'll tell you what, I'll be back next month and we'll talk about it.
Item 3, consent
Dale?
agenda, board
Excuse
action
me,
3.1,
Excuse
approval
me.
of minutes.
Excuse me.
3.1.
I want to thank you for your time.
3.1, approval of the minutes from the regular board meeting of December 12, 2023. Under 3.2, payment of bills. 3.2A, presentation of the bills for approval. 3.2B, monthly financial reports by fund. 3.2C, budget to actual report. 3.3, approval for business office to begin tentative preparation of the FY25 budget. 3.4, approval of comprehensive Mattoon Community Unit School District Number 2 Board Standard Operating Procedures. 3.5, the enrollment report. And 3.6, the Freedom of Information reports. Do I have a motion with regards to the consent agenda?
Motion
To approve?
to approve the consent.
Second. Second. Discussion?
Yes, please. When looking over the standard operating procedures for approval, I wanted to look at the document that was sent, which is the official SOPs. However, in the minutes, we talked about the agenda item, that the agenda item gets to be put on the agenda without any discussion. And in the minutes, it's talked about that Kelly said we're gonna remove the last statement, which we all voted on, yet it appears on the official document. So that needs to be changed. I'm sure it's a mistake, but it's also a reflection that we don't have working documents, which is super frustrating, and I'll talk about it later. Most of you probably have a document that you worked on, and when something is changed,
Heidi, can I
it's
ask, are you talking about the minutes or are you talking
The
about? SOP. Can
Approving
you
the
direct me directly to where you're talking about?
yes, so the SOP is 3.4, and if you look, the document was sent to us in the agenda. If you click on that. Yeah, so it's the very first one, placing items on the agenda. It should
Okay.
have the first 3 bullets, and the 4 statements should be retracted, including the piece that was added. The board empowers the board president and the superintendent to determine which request measures that are ascertained on the agenda, absolutely illegal. We all have the same amount of voice to put items on the agenda. So that should be removed. That all requested
So
items.
you're talking about the fourth, you're talking about the
Fourth bullet should
fourth
be.
bullet, all requested items for agenda
Yes.
consideration.
Yes,
You think all of that?
that's the last sentence.
So in the November meeting, what we agreed on at that time was that it would be removed, that the superintendent and the board president would have discretion over those items. We did not agree to remove everything. In the December meeting, there was a discussion about it because there was confusion over the meeting minutes. But they were correct in December. So there was a discussion about what it would say. I don't recall us agreeing or voting or taking any action to remove this entire bullet point. So,
Okay, so the issue is, Erica, that regardless if you're president or board member, every one of us has the right to add an agenda item, period.
that's not the issue for me. The issue is that the meeting minutes were correct, and now we have an issue because the meeting minutes won't reflect a preference or what you thought it should reflect what happened. And it was accurate in December, and now there needs to be an action item. So we need to agree on something. Not debating with you, I don't have a position on why you're requesting it. It just needs to be done properly.
Okay. So however you
Can we-
want to move forward.
Can I go back to what you raised? So the last sentence that I'm reading has to do with an item introduced under new business shall sit until at least the next regular scheduled
Yeah,
meeting.
so the minute says that Larson,
I'm not referring to the minutes, I'm
Okay,
referring to the standard
so
operating
the
procedures.
bullet, all requested items for agenda consideration will be discussed with the board president, superintendent, and the requesting board member. The process, you're gonna have all of this, whether or not you can have an agenda item. That is what we struck last month. Because that is not necessary. It doesn't matter whether you think it's important to be on there. We don't necessarily go through, if it's related to board business, it gets put on the agenda. And that's what's
Well-
important.
Okay, but that's not, I wouldn't characterize it as illegal. Legislative bodies, all kinds of legislative bodies empower an officer to make decisions like this, so it's really up to us whether or not we want to have that.
All board members have the right to add an agenda item, period,
According to what?
according to the Illinois law. I will get it for you.
Please do.
I will for sure.
Okay.
Because it is, we have equal power. And it's been a history on this board that the items I want on the agenda do not get added. So that is why this is
Have I
so
ever turned
important.
down an item of yours?
No, you have not.
Okay.
But that is
Just to
why
be clear,
this,
because you're kind of implying otherwise.
no, but no, it has happened. And do you want me to revisit that?
Sure.
Because this SOP is what needs to be
No,
corrected, so
no.
it doesn't happen
Let's
again.
just try to stick to the business at hand.
Yes.
That's what
I'm trying to do that.
So do you want to make some kind of proposal to change what's in this document?
Yes.
You have a motion, you want to,
I have a motion to remove the fourth bullet that includes the two sub-bullets underneath it that says the board empowers the president and superintendent to determine which items are added to the agenda.
So-
I'm sorry, does the any item, are you keeping that or are you proposing to take that off too?
That seems important, so we can leave that.
Just want to clarify.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank
That
you.
is
So-
important.
So you
the
said
entirety
last
of the
two
fourth bullet
bullets.
point, except for that last piece that Callie just
Correct.
mentioned. Okay.
It's this, because it's weird. Yes. And see, if we had a working document, all of this would be super easy, right? So you get a document, things are struck out with what you want changed, things are highlighted, what we're adding. We have
I'll
never
second
had
the
that.
motion.
And
Wait,
that's
just
what
a
makes it
second, though. I motion to approve the consent agenda, so we need to actually, we need to
Amend that.
amend,
Or-
I need to remove my, I need to strike my motion.
And I don't, I don't know that it was the whole, because what I was seeing was that the little circle bullet point that says the board empowers the board president and superintendent to determine which requests and measures to ascertain agenda inclusion within the board-generated criteria noted above are advanced or utilized. So that was the one thing that I was seeing that was like totally different than what were in our minutes from last time. Because the request for agenda items could be discussed with the board president and the superintendent
And that's what we agreed to
Yeah.
in November.
yeah, that's,
Was to remove
that's,
that.
oh, to remove this part?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So let me take a shot at a compromise here. I appreciate the concern that, even though I've never blocked a request for an agenda item, I appreciate the concern that one person would have the ability to do that. On the other hand, I also am concerned about the ability of a single board member to unilaterally place items on an agenda, regardless of whether they relate to board business, regardless of how many there may be. I
She didn't
think you're
say
asking
that.
for
She said-
abuse, excuse me. I think you're asking for abuse on the, and I'm not talking about you, just like you're not talking about me.
Sure.
So let's not let one person do either. So here's what I would suggest, is that if a board member makes a request to add an item to the agenda and it's timely, you would agree with the timely requirement,
course.
right? Okay, it's
That's what I'm
timely
voting for that.
and it's related directly to school board business. You're okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. And the president still refuses to put it on the agenda, then the requesting member has a right to have a vote of the board
No,
at that
No.
next meeting.
I disagree. If a board member would like to address something that is school district related, no one should get to vote that it doesn't get put on the agenda. Everything that is related to this district should be worthy of time on the agenda. That is relevant.
All I'm suggesting, again, I'm not suggesting that the president should have that power, but I think there has to be some gatekeeper to keep one board member from abusing that right. It's the same point you're making, it's just on the other end of the argument. You're worried about the president stopping stuff. I'm worried about a member taking the board hostage by putting 20 items on the agenda every meeting, and so we can't get to our other stuff. So I'm suggesting a compromise in the middle by which the majority of the board makes the decision.
I disagree.
Limit it
Okay,
to
then
5.
I will go, so go ahead and make your motion and we'll
And
call
I
it for a vote then.
She's made her motion and I second.
So Callie, do you have an accurate reflection of?
I don't believe so.
I did not think you did, so I'm gonna ask Heidi to state it clearly. What should be under that fourth dot?
Yes, so what we talked about previously is any board member can add an agenda item that is relevant to school district material, information, however you want to phrase that, to the agenda. That no member, whether they're president or superintendent, gets to say, you can't talk about that agenda item.
For purposes of, because that's now something different. I think the motion that I made the second on was to remove and delete, starting with all and going through that last one, that the board empowers the board president. So are we moving to
Sure,
delete
that's
it?
perfect, no, yeah, just
Okay,
delete it.
And I'll second that.
Okay, so no addition of what
Correct.
you said,
Just leave it
just
as
deleting. Okay, gotcha.
So deleting everything, the fourth dot point all the way down, except for that last sentence,
She's already
correct?
crossed it out.
So all requested to the board empowers.
I've done it.
I did.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Just so you
Ken.
guys are-
Yeah, so it's clear.
I guess before we go real quick, the only concern I would have is,
Well, wait, she's made a motion, do you have a second?
I second.
I'm sorry, excuse me, Jake, go ahead.
okay, before we vote, I guess the only concern I would have is, I do like the idea of some sort of checks and balances on putting something on the agenda. The only hiccup I have when we delete this, and I appreciate the faith which is brought forward in, is the gray area in what is or isn't board business. So we all just agreed that any agenda item that's brought forward that is board business is allowed to be discussed and is automatically put on the agenda. My only concern is, I guess just thinking personally, is I would want to bounce that idea or have someone looking that through before it puts on the agenda, just to ensure that it is true board business, so that I'm not requesting something to be put on the agenda that isn't appropriate for the board to be discussing. I just wanted to point out where I'm at before we take the vote. That's
And didn't we in the past have where the board member discusses with the superintendent and the board president, how it's related to school board?
That's in our minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Mr. President, Mr. Point, can we go ahead and vote on the motion?
Well, we're still talking about the motion. So now, as I read the motion as it stands now, is there a requirement that the agenda item be related to school board business?
Well, I think that's inherently why we did.
Is it in the, but is it in, it's not in here, is it? I'm looking for, I'm looking for it, but I'm trying to be quick about it. Is that in here?
It's struck.
Okay.
And I feel like that is an important statement.
Okay, so if we remove the bullet that says the board empowers the board president and superintendent to determine which requests and measures ascertain agenda inclusion, does that seem like a compromise if that's the only one that is struck? And the rest of it is if you want to add an item to the agenda, you would discuss that with the president and superintendent, but they do not have power to remove an item from the agenda, but you're to be accountable to explain its value or purpose of being on the agenda.
Can we clarify? So we're not asking about whether or not they have the power or the authority to remove it. You're saying that they don't have the power or the authority to deny your request.
Correct.
Okay, because there are measures to remove something, and I don't
Yeah.
want us to convolute this.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
So are you withdrawing your original motion?
Well,
Or are you just
I'm trying to
putting out a
find a
feeler here to try to?
I'm just trying to.
Okay, that's fine,
set
that's
a
fine, I was just
compromise.
asking, that's fine, sure.
Going from what was on our minutes, that fourth bullet point is what's on here until you get to the little sub-bullet point, the board empowers the board president and the superintendent. So if that was struck, it's exactly what we approved at the last meeting.
Well, we didn't approve that in the last meeting.
Well, there was a roll call vote.
On,
To remove it, we removed
to
that from the minutes.
amend the minutes, not to
Oh,
actually put the
gotcha,
policy.
okay, sorry. But, and we didn't go back through it, okay,
We discussed it, but we didn't take any action on approving this particular piece.
gotcha. But this was in the minutes, that that's how it was written.
And that was from October, which is what I'm saying. In October, that's what we agreed upon. And then,
But then the final doc we got,
well,
for approval tonight, it's included.
So I would be okay with removing that bullet point, that the power
Next to
of the
last.
board, yeah, the next to last.
Yes.
The
Just
board.
that.
Yeah, just
Just
that.
that. But keeping the all request items.
Yes, because that still gives it then the sounding board to go through, you know.
Is it possible to put a bullet point on there, like she was discussing earlier, and that it's on the board member to prove why it's school business?
It is.
Well, yeah, that's what it
Actually, that's
says.
it, that's
It's- yes,
retained.
It
If you don't strike
If you don't
all of
strike
that, it's
it,
still
it's-
in there, John.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that one, sorry.
so do we have a new motion? Are we striking the last motion? Is withdrawn?
Why don't you withdraw it and make that?
Yeah, we'll withdraw that, and the new motion will be to remove the bullet that states the board empowers the board president.
I'll second.
Again, I think you're adding that back in.
Yes.
And
He's
apparently, I can't tell who's
No,
on.
he's doing
Yeah,
it.
we're just
Yeah.
trying to capture now the
Yeah.
newest of the motion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, okay. Does everyone have that, Carlo? Okay, that's the motion right there.
Yes.
Second, Erica?
Second, yes.
Discussion. Kelly?
Armstrong,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Weaver,
Abstain.
Pop,
Yes.
Edges,
Yes.
Ryder.
Yes. Anything else on the SOPs?
It'll have to be in business.
Um,
Can I just ask to clarify, do you want me to talk about the travel SOP that I brought last month, that was denied, but I have follow-up to that. Do you want that in whole business, or do you want me to ask about it? Since they're messages.
You're bringing back another proposal on that?
Yes, I have a question about it. We can do it in whole business if you want.
What do we do with this? Okay, we are back to the consent agenda. So having done that, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended?
Yes, motion.
Second.
Second by Paul. Kelly? Discussion? Sorry. Kelly?
Larson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Uphoff,
Yes.
Hedges,
Yes.
Armstrong,
Yes.
Ryder.
Yes. Item 4, reports and recommendations of the business manager. Mr. Gear.
It escapes. Can I get that? It escaped. There you go. All right. 4.1, board action to approve request for proposals for food service bids. So Airmark has been our food service provider since 2003. Our contract with them will expire June 30th of this year. That shows that 2024, I'm sorry, I see that right now. Expired, it hasn't expired yet, it will expire in 2024, I've read through this 10 times. The new food contract, our food vendor contract will be for 5 years, that's set by Illinois State Board of Education with annual renewals for adjustments. So they take into account CPI and things like that for their salaries and for their employees. So that's what the adjustments are. And we will bring recommendations to the board in April or May. My coworkers are tired of me talking about the food service RFP. It's 120 pages. It's been sent to ISB and back for corrections. So it's a long document. We will set up a committee of 5 members of our staff within our district. We'll have proposals given to us. I created a rubric. We will base it on that rubric, and then we will pick the winning bid. And I will come back to you in April, May, it's probably going to be May, to approve a new food service contractor. So, any questions? Yes,
Like, are there other ones out?
there are,
Okay.
yes.
I've
And
heard of any.
there will, in the past, we've had, maybe a couple good bids. There will probably be more this year. The state of Illinois has been a low bid for years, where it's always just been whoever gives the lowest bid, that's who gets the contract. Now it's an RFP, so we've made different things in the rubric, so it's 50% is going to be based on the price, but then there's some other things in the rubric. Go with like healthy options, and there's many other things that will go into it. So it's more complicated than it's been in the past. That's why the document's so thick. So I'll be glad to send it. Yes.
Will it affect the grant that we have that provides free and
No, so this-
for everybody?
A great question. That's just, the CEP is what we give our free lunch and breakfast and snacks to all of our kids. That's a federal program, and whoever comes in will follow that procedure too. So we will continue that for at least 3 years, I believe. Any others? So all I'm asking is just to approve that we go out to bid for the food service contract. So
I did.
Okay, motion to approve request for proposals for food service.
Yes.
Cheryl, second. Erica, Kelly?
Overton,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Uphoff,
Yes.
Hedges,
Yes.
Armstrong,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Ryder.
Yes. 8.2,
all right, board action to solicit bids for driver repair at Mattoon Middle School and Williams Elementary School. So we've talked about this. We were about the same time last year. We came and we did this for Riddle Elementary and the high school. The high school work has been completed. If you've driven by there and seen it, it looks very, very nice. If you've driven by Riddle, you're going to see that it will look like the high school in about 4 months, hopefully. So we went out to bid on that last year, and those projects are being done this year. And so now I'm asking to go out to bid for these buildings for next year. So I kind of read through that kind of quickly. So we have also applied for a $50,000 maintenance grant with the state of Illinois that will offset some of the costs of this project. And then we would use our sales tax revenue to fund the remainder of the costs. So if you walked up close to the buildings, It's the stucco material around the top we've talked about that's showing some rot. It's supposed to be repaired and painted. I think what Dustin said, every 6 to 8 to 10 years. And it's been at least 20 on all of our buildings, so we've pushed that off. Okay, so we want to, maintain our buildings so they can look nice and they can last for years to come. So I'm asking to go out to bid, to solicit bids for driver repair at Mattoon Middle School and Williams Elementary School for fiscal year 25.
Okay, do I have a motion to authorize the administration to solicit bids for dry fit repair at Mattoon Middle School and Williams Elementary School? Motion from Ashley, second from Erica. Kelly?
Weaver,
Yes.
Uphoff,
Yes.
Hedges,
Yes.
Armstrong,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Ryder.
Yes.
All right, last one I have today, 4.3, board action to solicit bids for district door access and security systems. So this is what we talked about, I think it was in November at the lift building, and we went out to bid. We rejected all bids, and we said we'd come back to you. We have reached out to Upchurch Group to help us with the RFP, so make it better, and so we don't have the same problems we had last time. We expanded the scope of the work with an additional component to the project that was discussed in November. The door access portion will be for the swipe card entry at each building, except for lift, because it was done when we renovated the building next door, so that one's up to date. And we are adding a security system portion of the bid for replacing alarm systems in each building, again, except for lift. So as we went through this process, we found out there's a lot of proprietary information, or these systems are proprietary, so when we get one, it's hard to go with a different company for another one because they don't really mesh together with all the technology. So we decided, we were gonna do both. We were pushing one back a little bit, but we decided, let's put them together so the systems work and interlock. I think one of the board members said, this is about school safety. We wanna make sure we're doing it right. So that's why we rejected the bid in the past. This is why we talked to Upchurch, and Andrew's worked with Dustin a lot on this, and we wanna go out to bid and get this all done at one time, so our buildings are safe and we continue what we do.
Okay, do I have a motion to authorize the administration to solicit bids for the district door access and security systems?
Motion.
Motion by Erica Weaver, second by Cheryl Armstrong. Callie, can you call the roll, please?
Uphoff,
Yes.
Hedges,
Yes.
Armstrong,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Ryder.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Geary. Reports and recommendations of the Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources. Number 5, Dr. Stocy.
Thank you. The board has before them the January personnel report. As you can see, we have Carol Packer. She is retiring as Mattoon Middle School 8th grade teacher effective the end of the 28-29 school year. That time she will serve the district 27 years as a middle school teacher. So thank you for her service. Please thank her for her service and for our students in our community. Laura Roberts, Mattoon High School industrial education instructor, will be retiring at the end of the 28-29 school year. And she would have served then 22 years in our district in that capacity as well. So thank them for their service. Certified appointments, 5.1B, Jacob Fryman, recommending for Mattoon Middle School Dean of Students, effective October 24th, 2023. Jessica Carey, we're recommending substitute teacher, effective immediately. Classified resignation, longtime paraprofessional Lori Collins will be retiring as Little Leaders paraprofessional. She's a special ed paraprofessional for many years in our district. At that time, she would have served 15 years in our district as a paraprofessional. Has done a wonderful job. Drew Easton resigns Mattoon High School custodian effective December 29, 2023. Moving forward, recommending Casey Branson as district maintenance worker effective January 22nd, 2024. Sarah Wettick Garrett, we're recommending as Williams Elementary School 101 paraprofessional effective immediately. Josh Wendell, we're recommending as Mattoon Middle School custodian effective immediately. And Travis Howell, recommending as a volunteer effective immediately. There are no extracurricular resignations or assignments at this time. We do have an addendum. Classified resignation, Brett Porter will be retiring, effective at the end of the 28-29 school year as Mattoon Middle School physical education teacher and varsity high school wrestling coach. At that time, he would have served 20 years in that capacity in our district, so thank him for the service as well. Classified appointments, Lee Button, we're recommending substitute teacher effective immediately. Marilyn Harris will be resigning as William Elementary School supervisor effective January 5th, 2024. And then classified appointments, finishing up, Christine Gambrell, we're recommending substitute parapro effective immediately. Sarah Strumming, Brittle Elementary School supervisor effective immediately, and Marilyn Harris recommended as sub-supervisor effective immediately. Lastly, Lacey Stoneburner volunteer effective immediately. Are there any questions?
It's just me.
Sure.
Question I have for you, with regards to the STENA students, it's been approved since October 20.
We're going back, yeah,
Yeah, how come it wasn't on the November?
because we had an individual that was in that position that was on leave. So this individual, now that is permanently so a retro, when he had to assign him back. to what was-
I figured there was a reason.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Any other questions? See none, I recommend the board accept the personnel report as presented.
Motion to approve the personnel report and the agenda.
Motion.
Motion by Erica Weaver, second by Ashley Overton. Callie, can you please call the roll?
Hedges,
Yes.
Armstrong,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Uphoff,
Yes.
Ryder.
Yes.
Will you just present and then hand me the mouse? If you don't mind.
Item 6, reports and recommendations of the superintendent. Tim?
Yeah, so the first one is just one of the 2 action items on this evening's agenda that are biannual. The board may recall completing these actions as required by board policy back in August 2023. So the first of those items is to maintain closure of executive session minutes for the period of July 1, 2023 through December 31, 2023.
Motion to maintain closure of the executive session minutes for July 1, 2023 through December 31, 2023.
Motion.
Motion by Erica Weaver, second by Cheryl Armstrong. Discussion?
I have a question. Do we need to keep those for 18 months?
Yes.
Okay.
Callie, call the
So,
roll.
oh, no, so
Oops, sorry.
am I doing math wrong? We are going to, oh,
It's
maintain,
just, yeah.
gotcha, it's the next one that we're,
That's
okay.
the next one, I think.
I'm sorry.
Yep, you're right. We can call roll.
Yeah.
Kelly.
call roll.
Armstrong,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Uphoff,
Yes.
Hedges,
Yes.
and Ryder.
Yes.
So item 6.2, similar in fashion, purging the executive session audio recordings for the period of January 1, 2022 through June 30 of 2022.
Motion.
Okay, motion,
Question from the floor.
no.
According to
Motion by
the
Erica
state
Weaver,
law, you can't do
second.
that for 18 months.
Second. Second by John Hedges. Discussion? Callie, please call the
Oh,
roll.
but hold on, I have
Go
a
ahead.
discussion. So that is my question. Do we have to keep that for 18 months?
So we do keep that. Dave maintains a copy of that, and then after the board's approval of this, then we purge those records. So
So it has been 18 months, June
It
30th.
has not been 18 months.
Well, I mean, June 30th, 2023 would be 12, and then now it's 18, yeah.
So is there a reason, can you help me to understand, how come we don't keep it longer? I mean, I know that we have a minimum, but is there a reason we?
now, this has just been the board's practice. I think if you'd like to come in and look at when the board has done that, there's a log in which we have that, you're able to review as a board member. from an
Well, I
executive
understand
session
it's
perspective.
practice, I'm trying to understand why it's practice. So how come we don't keep them longer than 18 months?
Well, I would defer a little bit to Dave on this, but I don't think that it's legal for us to maintain personnel records if if the employment of the personnel no longer exists with the board. So I think there's records that employees still have rights to. However, I think that the board then may not have rights to maintain those records beyond that period of time if it doesn't relate to their employment after they've been employed. Dave, anything you want to add to that?
We get certification from the state when we purge those records as well, with bringing an individual from Springfield and approve those and sign a certificate on that, and we keep that on file as well.
May I ask, just because I feel like we're kind of getting lost. So that is governed by the Secretary of State and records, correct? So you have to submit something to the
Yep.
Records Commission
Correct.
and get approval in order to even do this,
Yeah, they
even
come,
after we vote on it, correct?
they come here certify and
And then there's a certificate. So if we were to, let's say that we miscalculated and you send it to the Records Commission, they're gonna deny it, correct?
they should, yes.
Thank you.
Callie, call the roll, please.
They do, they're
Oh, we have a motion and a second.
We do.
Larson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Uphoff,
Yes.
Hedges,
Yes.
Armstrong,
Yes.
Ryder.
Yes.
The final point on 6.3 is a presentation of the board policies for action at the upcoming February 13th meeting. The board has been shared the policy reference education subscription service. You should all have a copy of that that you're able to review. That's the press release for press release 113 that came out of the most recent legislative session back in October of 2023. So please review and reach out if you have questions.
Can I ask a question about that, Tim? So there was a question about school board policy 2.140, which is basically the communication from to and from the board. So in October, we looked at that and we were given a spreadsheet and it was called Board Policy Manual Amendments. And I think actually you and I talked about like it's 300 pages and we're like, is there some way that you could show us what's changed and what's not changed? And then you sent us this, or your staff sent a spreadsheet. And one of them is this policy 2.14. So when a constituent brought it up and said, hey, you removed 1 and 2, which is basically saying if you send communication to the board or the superintendent that information could be discussed or shared if you had a question. So I looked back in the spreadsheet and it says 2.14, no change. But the policy's clearly changed. And at the bottom of the policy, it says it was approved October 23rd, 2023. So it goes back, so this I would like to look at, we don't have to do it tonight, I'll send you this in an email, but whether it's an accident, it's a mistake, but the intention is this, looking at accreditation at the university, not having a working doc makes this super hard to look through. I mean, there are so many policies that I'm going through to say, oh, there's no change, as opposed to having a document that, just like you did here in the live time, making those changes. So moving for this press document, I realize it might be a little bit of legwork, but is it possible to change that format so that we can see an actual document of what's changed, what's staying? I mean, I know there's footnotes and things like that, but the way we're currently doing it, it's taking me, I don't know about the rest of you on the board, a long time to compare and contrast these two documents, the way that it's set up currently. And it's 300 pages. I mean, it's a crazy amount, and it's our board policy, so I feel like it's really important, and I'm wondering if we can look at a new way of sending that format to working doc.
I guess if the board's interested in establishing a different procedure with that, I'd welcome that. I guess that this is the history of how the board policies have been presented as they come out biannually. But if there's something that the board desires to do differently, then I'd seek their guidance.
I'll make a note that in the last, when this came up in October, we did inquire, and I think that our technical staff was looking to see if there was a way that they could do that. At the time, they did not have the ability to do that. So, I mean, we don't get this every month, but I think we would all like a more simpler way to review it. But if they don't have the technology to do it at this time, or they have not yet figured it out, then, I mean, we still have a month to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, just for clarity, I guess, each of you received a copy of the summary, right, which outlines the specific changes, whether it impacts policy, impacts procedures, or impacts the exhibits that are sometimes provided with each policy for the administrative team to sort through. So I guess I would recommend, if that's where you prefer to start, that's probably easier than navigating the 300-page document of all new policies that show the updated footnotes, exhibits, and administrative procedures. So there is, I guess, a Cliff Notes version of what is changed in your existing policy. And I hope that you found this beneficial, because this is what the board purchases the service to be able to help minimize, to your point of going through each and every board policy.
Yeah, I'm just asking for a working document. I mean, I think it would have made the SOPs, we spent a tremendous amount of time on that. It would have simplified that. I think most businesses today, that's how we use a document. We strike things out, we highlight, we make changes. And we're reviewing these things twice a year, and it is very cumbersome. And so if we could, I don't know what the rest of you think, if it would be something that you could compromise and ask for a different type of document so we can look at it. It's important for me to review that. but I'm spending a lot of time.
Ask for a different type of document from who? From the state board?
No, from the staff. When we get this, instead of having a spreadsheet, like this is the spreadsheet that we got last time, and it had each of the
Yeah.
policies in it.
Yeah.
It makes more sense to have the actual document visibly. You can see the changes, it's how we edit journals, it's how we edit books, it's how we edit all things, that you look at things that are struck out, things that are added, and you can flow through that this new document much quicker than having two things that you're trying to compare to.
Okay, I'm relying on the press documents. Do you think that that's not sufficient?
This is not how our wording is in the new stuff, though. These are some of the questions I was going to meet with you on, so, from the press thing. So, will you please follow up with Amanda Gibson and ask if she's been able to figure out a way to do the strike through, which I know that she was working on. I think that's what we're all getting to. We talked about it. It's really simple. We could just follow up with her, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Okay.
I would appreciate that.
You have anything else on? I do not. Item 7, reports and recommendations of other district personnel.
Yeah,
I'm the other district now.
He goes first.
yeah, as we get started here, this, I think that there was some question at the last meeting, just how frequently we discuss academics and/or the impact of professional development for staff. So just to offer a quick clarification, starting this past calendar year in February, there was a presentation given to the board on the staff professional development opportunities. In March of 2023, there was a summer programming update that impacted how students that were going to be learning and why they were going to be attending the summer school programming. In April, there was a programmatic impact update around student growth. In May, there was a dual credit course presentation and some information included in that as well. In September, there were curriculum updates that were shared with the board. In October, the board approved unanimously those curriculum updates, as well as school improvement plans and the data associated with those school improvement plans were given in October. And then November, there was a school report card school report card data was shared with the board, as well as the Lighthouse designation, which also incorporated some academic data. So I guess I just wanted to be clear from the board's perspective that there have been given multiple presentations around this. And I want to give some credit here to our administrative team for their ongoing work with this, and their staff, our instructional coaches that support our teachers, and to our teachers that on a daily basis. Actually, we just came from a meeting this afternoon around academic systems, and we had a couple board members. Actually, we had 3 board members there for a little bit that discussed on a monthly basis the academic areas and what we're doing to offer questions around what improvements are we making, what celebrations are we seeing, and we continue to see those trends go in the direction that we wish to see. So. Just before Christy gets going here, would also like to share that if the board has questions, let Christy get through the presentation, jot those questions down, we can ask them at the end. So with that, Christy?
Yeah, well, thank you. You can see we've got a big team here tonight. We are very proud of the work that's happened thus far in the school year, and we're really excited to share with you the update. So we don't usually get to give an update in January, so thank you. We're excited for that opportunity. So I want to just walk through an overview of what we'll be talking about during our time this evening. First, we're going to give an overview. We have some new board members that have maybe just started kind of getting involved in some curriculum. So we thought it would be great to just be on the same page and share the depth and breadth of what we're able to do for students in this district. We thought we would talk about our interventions thus far this school year. So overview will be everything. Interventions will be for when students need extra help, what's happening. We'll talk about our progress thus far, and then we have some school reports. So we'll talk about top 3 things you need to know from all of our schools. And you have the experts here in the building who are doing all of these things day in, day out to help add, they have added a lot to this. So we'll jump in just by talking about an overview. In this overview, I'm going to go over some definitions so we're really clear and we're all on the same page about what we mean when we say certain things. Educators love acronyms. One of our favorites. So I'll try to get really clear on that. We're going to talk about core learning. So core learning, what's everybody getting? What are the things that the board approves? Instructional design. What does our teaching and learning look like? What's the assessment design? How are we measuring student progress? What are the instructional expectations? And finally, how are we monitoring progress? I think when we worked to put this together in the overview, we're really proud of the system that has been built, including all of these elements. So we'll just start with what is core learning. Our core learning covers these topics and others. But specifically, when we talk about academics, we talk about subject areas. When we talk about math, it says K-12, but really that's preschool. And in some instances, it's birth through 3, where we're developing numeracy skills. We talked about that tonight in our academic systems meeting. What are the effective research strategies for itty bitties as it comes to math? ELA is English Language Arts. That's a system for reading is included in that, writing is included in that, speaking, listening, science, social science, SEL, specials, essentials, and electives, and fine arts, and CTE, and PE. So definitions. Further definitions beyond the subjects that we teach every day in our schools, there are varying levels of support. So when we say core or tier 1, what we're talking about is the guaranteed and viable curriculum that all students get. Okay, so this means it's for everyone. It's in all of our subject areas, we have a core or tier 1. It also includes a universal screening, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that during assessment. But what that means is that we're gathering information universally in ELA, English Language Arts, and in math to determine necessary supports. So this is kind of like when you're cooking and you're checking the recipe all the way along to see if you need to add more seasoning instead of waiting until you serve the meal and people are like, gosh, you needed more salt. So that's kind of our universal screening allows us to kind of take the temperature of how we're doing and then adjust. We'll talk about that in assessment. The other thing we'd like to define for the board is when, what I need, or tier 2. So these services are offered to students who are performing between the 11th and 20th percentile on that universal screener. So the universal screener we use is NWEA Math, which we'll talk about in assessment. But when we have students who perform in that specific band, we add interventions. We have historically offered substantial deep reading interventions. We have added math interventions recently over the last 2 years to address some of the concerns regarding our students' performance in the 11th to 20th percentile in math. There are some barriers to that, right? Like the amount of time we have, the amount of space in a schedule, the amount of students who might need both reading and math. But these services are in addition to core. So every kid gets the guaranteed viable curriculum, and then on top of it, some students receive this tier 2 intervention. In addition, we progress monitor, so we check to see how those interventions are working, and we always know students are receiving those interventions. We have a third or tertiary level of supports, and these intense interventions are often referred to as tier 3. They're more individualized, right? So these are for our students who are performing below the 10th percentile. We talked a little bit about percentiles today, but it's a relative term in terms of like you take all of the kids and regardless of their scores, that bottom 10% relatively need the most intense interventions. So these students also receive tier 3 or individualized super small group supports. We do a ton of this in reading. We do some math. This is in addition to core and tier 2. So these kiddos are getting a triple dose of intervention from our staff. That's a very small number. We'll talk about numbers later on in the presentation. They're also progress monitored, and parents are also notified not only about their students' involvement in these interventions, but their progress. We have another level of support for students with disabilities. Those are individualized plans. There are 13 categories for eligibility for these specialized services, and we serve all of them. So this is in addition to all of those other things. And this plan is an individualized plan developed by an entire team of professionals, the parent, and as much as possible, the student. So what is our core learning? We thought it might be helpful just to kind of talk about how we get to what we teach in reading, math, science, social studies, all of those things. So there's a process. This is kind of giving a little bit of history. So there are federal standards. It goes way, way back to A Nation at Risk in the 80s. We didn't go that far back. But in 2010, the federal government released the Common Core State Standards. That was really kind of like, that was a really big thing that happened because it hadn't happened to that level where the federal government had specific standards that they were releasing that widely. So after that happened, they released the next generation standards. And states responded, right? States said, hey, we want to develop our own standards and we will go off of what you've recommended and we'll have our Illinois learning standards. So we have the federal standards, and then from there we have the state standards, and those are available in every subject area. I've linked it in there. There's guidance for every subject you might want to teach under the sun. The state has standards that you can utilize for those. The third and final level of our curriculum development is we take those federal standards, we take those state standards, and then we say locally, what are we going to expect for students to know and be able to do during their time here in Mattoon schools? So those are our local learning targets. That's the curriculum that our teachers use. They're designed from the state standards with local nuance and prioritization by committee. The board, people who've been seated on the board for over a year will remember the most recent time we used a committee. This year we're doing science, where we have people working on the science standards. They'll make recommendations to CCC, and then that will come to you. And that's the funnel that we use to come up with what those local learning targets are. In Mattoon, we use a proficiency scale design, which provides a really clear picture of what kids have to do to master those learning targets. It's a clear picture not only for the teacher, but also for the student and also for parents, right? So anyone can go onto our website and see what are they supposed to know and be able to do in third grade math. And they can click on every single one of those proficiency standards or proficiency scales and see what the target learning is. Those subject areas, I think I've linked it so you guys have this electronically. For people who don't have electronically, it is on our teaching and learning page on the website, on the beautiful website. So that kind of explains core, what are the subjects? How do we derive what we teach in those subjects? We thought it would be great for the board in this academic update to know what materials and resources we utilize. So what we've added here is just in math, these are the resources that we use. In ELA, these are the resources we use. Science, and like I said, we're in the middle of a review year. We're looking at a few different products. Social studies, and then in SEL, we use Leader and Me. So those are the core learning materials that's part of the Guaranteed Viable curriculum. Instructional design in the core, we use a workshop model with standard pacing guides. So I want to explain that a little bit, just so you have an idea of what's going on in all of these individuals' classrooms. It's a blend of whole group, direct instruction, small group, which is guided by a teacher and or collaborative application of what they've learned. And then they have individual learning time as well to do practice that the teacher then can look at and see if they need to give additional feedback or more targeted instruction. It is a blend of teacher and technology assisted. Our teachers teach in our classrooms. We use technology as a way for students to continue practicing and get rapid feedback in those individual learning times. We also use competency-based learning, which basically requires that students progress to the next skill based on mastery, not just because the chapter ended. So this allows us to understand deeply what students know, what they still need to work on, and it allows us to continue to work on those individual things during the workshop time while the core curriculum continues in that tier 1 model. We are also really proud of the fact that in our system, this allows for accommodating acceleration of learning much more effectively. In years previously, before we had this system really well built, students who might have been ready for an accelerated learning topic had to just kind of wait, right? Or maybe they might learn it on their own or like peek ahead to the next chapter in the book. This system allows for us to equitably provide access to advanced materials to all students so that they can continue to grow and explore the things that they love and that they're interested in. We do have approved waivers to the Illinois School Code and the Administrative Code because we're a competency-based district. This allows us to do some flexible things when it comes to interventions, so we can work with students in different ways. They can take additional classes and they can demonstrate proficiency. It allows for more time in their schedule so they can do additional things. Okay, so that's the teaching side. Like that's the core teaching side. In order for us to be really great teachers, we have to check, how is it going? And that's the assessment side of things. So I've linked in here some resources for you to look at if you haven't already seen them. But it's important for the board to know that we use a blend of formative and summative assessment. So we like to define those as formative is assessment for learning. We're checking, we're assessing what students know and are able to do so we can know what to teach next. That's formative assessment. And that happens all the time. I think I put some examples here. Like, I'm sure we have teachers here who did this today, right? Like this is like informal checks, fist of 5, how are we doing? Exit slips, leveling when we're using our rapid, like our reading records and we're looking at our guided reading groups. We use a ton of data analysis. If you guys were at the academic system meeting today, you got to see a little bit of that. At the system level, our assessment for learning is in WEA MAP. So that's our benchmark that we use 3 times a year that gives us great information about what students are doing well and where their areas of growth are. We also use the Pearson interim assessment, and we use some PSAT data too. That's all assessment for learning. It's so our teachers know specifically what to do next. We also still do summative learning, which is the assessment of learning. This is kind of like at the end. We're done. What do you know? Like this is the performance assessment. This is like, you know, if you want to use a sports analogy, formative assessment would be practice. Like I'm checking to see how we're doing. I'm making corrections. The summative assessment is the game. Had to play, right? So that's the assessment of the learning. What this looks like in our district at the classroom level, we still have unit and chapter exams. We have finals. We have quizzes. We have tests that just measure. Here's what I taught you. What did you learn? What do you know? What can you do? At the system level, our assessments of learning are the Illinois Assessment of Readiness in grades 3 through 8, and the SAT, most notably the SAT at the high school level. We've included an assessment guide that really articulates all of the assessments we use in our district and why we use them. We thought it was really important for our families to know when we're using time to assess, it's so we can better instruct. And so we just wanted to give them a glimpse of what those assessments allow us to do as educators, and also just answer some frequently asked questions. So those are linked there for the board as well. So we have a plan, right? We've got this core, we've got the materials to teach the core, we have a plan for interventions when it's not working, we assess so that we know when it's working and not working. What are our expectations for academics? This has kind of been something that's been asked. And so we thought it would be great for everyone to know this system that's been built and the ways that our principals, our assistant principals, our teachers, our coaches, in some instances, our students helped set expectations for what's actually happening in the classroom, right? So that's why you have a team here tonight, because when we want to give an academic update, you're talking about what we all do, and so we're all really proud of this. We have what's called an academic playbook at every level. And in this playbook, we outline specific expectations for academics. These are shared expectations. This isn't me or the principal saying, you will do this. No, not at all. It's all of us saying, this is what works. This is how much time should be on subject areas. And these are the instructional strategies we feel are most effective based in research. Also expectations for communication. Those are linked here. They're comprehensive, thorough, and we're very proud of them. And really proud of the work that went into developing those. And more importantly, the impact that's happening just in consistency, right? Just kind of developing and living the system that we built. In addition, 2 years ago, we began working with Dr. Robert Marzano. Actually, it might be 3 years ago now. And his work with effective instructional practices. So what specific things can we do day in, day out in the classroom to move the needle on math, reading, writing, whole person wellness, analysis, higher level thinking. So those highly effective instructional practices have been provided systemically. Our principals have them for their work with teachers as they do coaching and conversations and evaluations, and our coaches have those as they're working with professional learning communities and teams of teachers and individuals too as they're going through coaching cycles. So that's been a really exciting elevation of just the consistent way we approach highly effective instruction. I just saw that. Oh, walkthroughs. I didn't mention that. We look for these things too. Collectively, we look for them. I think it's really important and exciting to recognize something really special in this district is the high level of trust we've cultivated between teachers as colleagues, between teachers and coaches opening their doors, saying like, hey, let's be thought partners. What's working really well in my classroom and what do you think I can do differently? Between principals being able to say like, I'm really having a hard time with this. Do you guys have any suggestions? Principals and teachers, there's a high level of trust and a high level of awareness of the expectation and the seriousness of all of this work that we're doing. And I think in many districts, walkthroughs wouldn't happen or they wouldn't be as effective as they are here because over time we have built this idea of we know you're doing and giving your best. And that doesn't mean that we like rubber stamp rules, like, oh, things don't matter, but not at all. Like we're here to help each other continue to grow. And that the walkthroughs paired with instructional practices, I think have been really an effective addition. So, okay, we said we're doing all this stuff. How are you checking it? How do you know if it's working? What systems do you have, team, for double checking and making sure that we're on track? Here are the things that we do. Every month, we have a building level data meeting and a strategy session. So that is a data review of, I don't know how many rows we had the high school one today. 45 rows of data, things that we talk about. And it's not just, hey, how many kids are on track for PSAT? It's not that. It's, all right, here's our current on track. Now let's look at a spreadsheet with 15 tabs and 300 rows broken down by teacher, by skill, by instructional strategy, by intervention group. So this one little bullet is maybe an oversimplification of what actually happens in those meetings. I mean, we have such incredible people and they're working really hard. So that happens every single month in every single building. In addition, we have district level systems meetings. And in those meetings, we have strategy sessions and that occurs every month. So at that level, what we're doing is we're maybe not just talking about high school data or Williams data or Franklin data. Rather, we have all of the buildings represented and we're looking for patterns and we're asking each other questions like, help me understand, your wildly important goal is this, and I'm seeing that. So that happens every month. Grade level professional learning community meetings occur at least weekly, and those PLCs are everything, right? Like these people are doing life together. They're working together. They're teaching the same kids or the same grade level or at the high school, the same department. And they're talking about what's working and they're talking about what's not. And they're also talking about life, right? Like they're figuring out how to be effective professionals and how to do the best they can for the students that they serve in terms of the buckets of core curriculum, interventions, assessment data, and also activities, performance assessments, community events, all of those kinds of things. So that happens every week, at least in every building. Building level administrative teams review their data weekly with their little core teams. I say weekly, it's probably more like daily. And the data that they're looking at ranges from anything from attendance to discipline to fill in blank, all the things, right? Class learner level communication occurs at minimum weekly. That's outlined in our academic playbook. Our intervention data is reviewed quarterly, again, at minimum. And that's because at the end of a quarter, we will have a whole cycle for those tier 2, tier 3 interventions. So we can really look at our progress monitoring data and see if the trend line is moving in the right direction, or if we need to increase or change our intervention to support the student. We set goals and monitor progress every single week. And as you can see, when we talk about academic updates, we're talking about everybody, right? Like the administrators do that, so do the teachers, so do the students. They're all setting goals and they're all monitoring their progress. Teams of teachers discuss best practice and data. That happens ongoing. Also, it happens in our action team meetings. Specifically, the academic action team talks about the stuff that we're talking about tonight. So they talk about all of those kinds of things. Administrators conduct walkthroughs and provide feedback. Most recently, we're talking about this on the Riddle slide. An example of that is a really intentional learning walk and feedback collection as it relates to math instruction. But that happens in all of our buildings. That's just one of the more recent ones I can think of. Evaluation conversations also include content on instructional efficacy. So that is a system that's built into our district to continue to support work towards academics. So what are our interventions and what are our results? We intervene at the student level. We talked about that when we were talking about tiered interventions. We also intervene at the school level. So at the school level, interventions might look like something like, oh, last year we picked up Do the Math, which was an additional manipulative-based math program for elementary schools. So that would be a school level example of an intervention. System level type of an intervention would be like in November and October when we were talking about our culture systems team, and we said, what can we do to create a system for improving chronic absenteeism? So that would be an example of how we intervene at the district level when we see those patterns, as a system. The results are analyzed in terms of interventions, and again, also at the school level. And what we noticed, I think it's on one of my celebration slides coming up, is that students who have been involved in a tier 2 or tier 3 intervention, 90% of those students systemically show growth. So what that means is when we can do those things, we can get those results. So that's good. I'm going to talk about the results at the school level, I think, in an upcoming slide. So how have we increased support and accountability? When we look at the data at tier 1 and we say, like, here's where our students are performing in terms of proficiency, and here's how they're performing in terms of growth, and we see an area we want to target to improve, what do we do? Here are the things we have done in the last year. We've increased the cadence of accountability and data review. We've increased the availability and accessibility of data, as well as just its ability to be consumed and acted upon. We've added instructional coaches to support classroom teachers and instructional design, implementation, and efficacy. We have implemented individualized goal setting to teach students their role in growth and improvement, right? Like it's their learning. We want to empower them to lead their learning so that when they leave us, they're able to do that in life. We've increased access of information for families on our district website. The level of availability when just looking at our curriculum, that's something that we never had in the past. We have new curricular materials this year in math in grades 6 through 12. We have new science of reading materials at Mattoon Middle School. We have, control button, not sure. Oh, good, one way. Dave, can you help me? I'm not sure. Maybe just hit slideshow. Okay. Can you hit slideshow one more time? Yes, good job. Dave for the win. As Beckett would say, that's a W. All right, we've also done site visits of high-performing schools. So today at the academic systems meeting, Kristen was showing this graph that we often use. It's an interactive graph that shows a scatter plot of all the schools in the state, right? Like, how are they performing in terms of growth, and how are they performing in terms of proficiency? So we look for schools that look like us. That's really important when we compare data, just to recognize that if we're going to look at comparables, we need to look at same size, same demographics, same things as us, so that we can, that'd be a research standard, right? Like, that's how you replicate a protocol. So site visits of high-performing schools who look like us. We have one coming up on the 22nd of this month. Learning walks to observe best practices, and a discussion of those, by the way. We've also done a deep study of instructional practices. We have a system that we purchased to support the ability to implement that rather than just talk about it. We have actual practical implementation guides that says this is how you do it, and then coaching conversations for implementation. We are engaged currently with in a partnership with the Bloomington Regional Office of Education in a mathematical instructional practices cohort where our teachers meet every month. They do hands-on. They have a day, they do hands-on practice with ways to modify our math instructional practices for increased efficacy with our students. That's been going on this year. It was actually a highlight of one of our teachers this afternoon. We also have a partnership with the Illinois State University tutoring program, where we have tutors who come to our school to provide additional interventions for students. We partnered with Dr. Marzano for instructional strategy support. Solution Tree, which is a professional development company, comes in and they've done writing instruction, both professional development and embedded coaching, so that when we look at our ELA scores, that's analytic writing. That's something that's evidence-based reasoning is all the way in all of our standards. So we've had supports there. We've also had supports with Solution Tree for math instruction. They've come and done kind of stand and deliver professional. I'm telling you guys this, you guys. They do like stand and deliver like I'm doing, but then they also come in and do embedded coaching. So they teach, this is the way you should be teaching math. We all learn that kind of thing. And then they go into the classrooms and they co-teach with the teachers and they give feedback. So that's been an additional thing that we've started in Tier 1. We also brought back Max teaching strategies for reading and writing instruction. That is incorporating reading and writing in our core classes, so in our subject area classes. We have created a beautiful professional development pathway plan. So if teachers choose to continue their professional learning, they can pick the topic they want to learn, and the resources are there. Our instructional coaches knock that out of the park, along with other people, but like that is, many districts are asking us about that model. We also added a STEAM class. The board supported this. It's been the 22 school year. That's a way that early on we're implementing the research around just math awareness and numeracy and thinking of ourselves as mathematicians and exploring. And so that's been a favorite. Kids have loved adding that. And then it goes on up to Mr. Young's class in the middle school. And we also added interim assessments in the 22 school year. The reason that matters, just really quick, is because that helps us know if we're on course for that summative assessment. It's tied to the Illinois state standards, whereas math is nationally normed for skills, and it helps us know how our kids are performing related to others nationally. This test tells us on a state assessment, these are the standards that they're doing well on, these are the things they need to improve on. So that's a lot. Yeah, good job, guys. You're tired? I'm just tired from pushing forward. So what's working? We're doing all that stuff. What's working? In addition to implementing those things, we've conducted internal program reviews to analyze the effectiveness of these programs that we've implemented. Because if we're going to invest time and money, we want to know if it's working. So here's what's working. Students looping. We have seen consistent evidence of when students stay with a teacher and a group of students for more than 1 year, we see increases in their growth and proficiency. So, and that's true even in the instance of like a wave time where we kind of keep kids for a couple years. That makes sense when you think about the research related to high trust environments, right? The whole person and those relationships, not only with kids, but also with families. We've also seen when students and staff use 4DX to set specific academic goals with fidelity, again, without exception, that resulted in increased growth and proficiency, but really most notably growth when kids are monitoring their own progress. That's reflected in John Hattie's meta-analysis of what works in education as well. When students have extended time on task with structured, meaningful work and feedback, that's something that works. When kids are emotionally regulated and they're ready to learn, we get better results there. When students are engaged in high-quality interventions with direct instruction by our trained staff members, our teachers and our paraprofessionals who deliver these high-quality interventions, unsung heroes. Like they are killing. Like I get goosebumps when I think about the specific students and what's happening in those interventions. It's great. Students use technology to personalize independent practice. So this is where the technology piece is really important. And really, we're lucky to live in a time where there is technology that can help in this responsive way. So when technology is used to personalize that independent practice and provide feedback, it works. We're finding that's where we're getting the best bang for our buck. When teachers use those high leverage strategies we've talked about, when that's happening, and I've listed some of those there, we're seeing great results. So that's another thing that we're saying. When this happens, it's helping. So let's do more of that. Teachers consistently using district-approved curricular resources allows us to make decisions, informed decisions about our resources because we know if it's helping or not. When our teachers have time together to collaborate and to continue their own professional learning and they're supported to do so, we find that they are then more satisfied in their job, they feel valued, and they get to continue to grow, which they're doing this because they love it, right? So when they have that opportunity and it's supported by building schedules, by resources, that helps us retain people too. When the school has intentional database goal setting with regular check-ins by administrators, that's helpful whenever we're just having the conversation with regularity about what we're doing and what's important. When schedules are aligned to academic improvement efforts, when we put the time in, we see the results. When staff has access to data, and it's not just here's a spreadsheet with thousands of rows, it's broken down for them, and we have names and numbers. So when we talk about like 20%, 30%, 15%, like those percents represent students. Who are the kids? Who are they? And what are we doing? What do those individual kids need? That's the incredible work that's happening. And when that's happening, we get great results. And then finally, what we're noticing is our Rockstar principals, system principals, when they're referencing these things and they're using it in coordination with data and they're creating systems to support the use of these things, then you get whole school improvement, right? We're very lucky to have these principals because these are the things that they're working with their staff and their leadership teams to do. So those are the things that during our program reviews that we found evidence of effectiveness. For the kids who are performing in those approaching or below categories, these are the supports that we offer. And these are the things that we're noticing. So we do classroom level interventions. Our teachers do this. I mean, within one classroom, we might have 6 levels of things happening. So they're doing grouped responses during that workshop model. Also, we're sharing kids across a grade level or across a department to just really, I guess, increase our ability to have multiple hands. And then we're doing school level pull-out tiered interventions. So at the school level, we have teams of teachers that go grade level to grade level or paraprofessionals to pull students out and do those tiered interventions. So here's what we'd like to celebrate related to the interventions we're providing and also just to share with the board some of the challenges. When kids are interventions, they're making progress. It's working. A challenge. Interventions can be needed in multiple areas. And we only have so much time, so much in our schedule, and so much staff availability. Those things limit our ability to do additional resources. So those are the challenges that we kind of try to find solutions around. So what does it all mean? What are the top 3 things you should know about academics from the fall semester, the semester we just came out of? From a district-wide level, what we want the board to know is that 10 of our 12 grade level averages were above the norm growth in math on math. Here's why that's so important. A couple things. One, this just represents our 2 elementaries and our middle school because the high school is taking the second math test as we speak. Well, maybe not like right now, but like in only like 12 hours, we'll be taking it again. And so what this data tells us is that in 10 of our 12 grade levels, students' performance between the fall and the winter benchmark, their pace of growth was above the norm for all of the millions of students who took the test. So why is that important? It's important for a lot of reasons. First of all, what we're doing in the classrooms is working. Secondly, you can't capture more proficiency unless you accelerate growth, right? Because everyone's going to grow. We're all going to grow because we're just in school a little bit longer. We have to accelerate growth if we want to raise the level of students who are proficient. So this is within our circle of influence, and our teachers are killing it. It's working. This was a huge celebration also because for the fall semester, we almost singularly focused on math. I mean, we talked about it every day, and we were thinking about it every day, and we're talking about like what's working, what's not working, and so the concerted effort of your team resulted in, we think, very successful improvement. You can see that sustained focus. I wanted to reiterate that in 2 through 8. We've seen it in growth. We're going to see it in high school. We just haven't seen it yet. Looking at the early data, it'll be there. In addition, over 90% of students who were in intervention showed growth. Over 90%. incredible, because we're talking about our learners who have the largest gap, right? So those learners in kindergarten, if we don't address that gap, are going to be the learners in high school that we're still struggling, like, to figure out how to help them achieve. So we need them in early intervention, and it's working. What about the high school? The high school celebrations, and what the board really needs to know is that there is an all-time high, tight alignment of goals, action, reflection, and adjustment. So in other words, we are really clear on the data. They know the data very well. In addition to knowing the data, they have had numerous conversations about what does research say, what action strategies will impact that data. Not just what do we think, or thanks for the data, we'll put it on our shelf. These people are looking at it and saying, okay, it's algebra for these 6 kids, and what strategies work best for algebra? Then they're implementing it. We're having walkthroughs. They're talking to each other. They're reflecting on what happened, and then they're making adjustments. That cycle, that is it. Like, that is the process that we just have to keep working. It's gonna take time, but this is the work, and we've seen it. And so that is the first thing they want you to know. Secondly, they want you to know that student-specific data is utilized school-wide. I have to emphasize again, this doesn't happen without a high-trust environment. As a teacher, I own my data. You can say there's a lot of factors. There are a lot of factors. But a teacher's heart, those are my kids, that's my data, it's a reflection of me also. So to be able to say, I want to share that, and I want you to help me help them differently, that takes trust. That's an extension of trust. And we're seeing that consistently at the high school, and that's a celebration for us. Math growth is evident school-wide. We'll have specific numbers on that at the next academic systems meeting, but that's important, and we want to celebrate that. At the middle school, the things you need to know. The middle school, in case you don't know, a middle school concept, some of you, Jake, went to middle school there, right? So teams are kind of like the small school and the big school concept, where students have a small group of teachers and they share students so they can talk about student performance together and wrap around supports. And so that team this fall, what they want you to know is that they emphasize the use of assessment data. It's still planning all the things that they're going to do and all the events and all the stuff, but they've added in an intentional time for assessment data. We have a daily win time that targets individual needs, including 20 minutes every day of math, specific math time for students. And that math time isn't like, oh, let's just do more math. It's specified to like what you need for math and what you need for math and what you need for math. So those groups help that. And then intentional, frequent professional development for math and ELA, instructional best practices. So again, back to what does research tell us that works? Let's get better at doing that. And our job is to help you make sure you have what you need so that you can do those things. At Williams Elementary School, Mr. Schaefer begged me to change that picture. But it's a great picture. I almost thought you were wearing the same shirt. Mike, why don't you come on here? You can stand here while I do this. I just didn't have time to change it. That's a great picture. So at Williams, oh my gosh. So professional development on math is scaled through the PLC. So we have representatives from every grade level going to the ROE, professional development, and when they come back, they're scaling that learning. Rachel's doing a great job there too, kind of facilitating some of those conversations about, okay, one person went from this grade level, how are we going to take that learning and scale it so that all students get to benefit from that? So that's a huge win. That math stuff has been great. The math data at Williams indicates that our students are demonstrating more growth than the national average. I think it's actually the 58th percentile as the school average. We have one grade level in the 70th percentile for growth. Again, that's the sweet spot. We've got to continue to accelerate growth so we can lift achievement. And then teachers at Williams are also using win time, where they're analyzing math data for individualized intervention groups and academic needs. At Riddle, the things we want you to know about academics there, they've done a great job at their faculty meetings. It's not just what I'm doing now. We're just talk. It's professional development. And in their PLCs, it's professional development. And the specific things they're providing professional development on are the things that they saw in instructional rounds might need additional focus, right? So it's, again, not just randomly picking something out of the sky. It's like, what do our kids need? What do our teachers need? And let's give it to them. So that's been a win this fall. In addition, again, you see a pattern here, data-driven instruction groups formed on math data and growth. Again, we have an increase in the number of students who are proficient and above average growth. This has really been a huge target for Riddle. It's a celebration that they're like, we're gonna think about math, we're gonna talk about math, we're gonna go after math, and look. Yeah, so again, we've gotta just kind of keep our eye on that prize, and success is measured by a commitment to a series of small steps, right? Like that's what's gonna get us. We've got to stay consistent and committed and use those strategies that we know are working so that we can continue to get that kind of growth. So that's the academic update from the fall. That's kind of what we've been up to in the world of academics. Thank you for your time, and that's all I have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Hill.
You're welcome.
And thank you to all you teachers, life coaches, everybody out there, because I know you truly care for these students and you're gonna do everything you can to get them where they need to be.
It was a pleasure to see all your data today. It's clear that you guys are really in the weeds as far as figuring out what's happening in each level. I was blown away by the data that you presented. And I appreciate that when you say you're working hard and giving it your best, like it is clear. It is absolutely, this is not a teacher issue, this is not a student issue. I mean, it's very clear how hard you all are working. I have a couple questions. So one, the curriculum, is it all evidence-based? I know it's probably a stupid question, but like when we look for, that's how we do it. So I'm assuming when you look for curriculum in math and English, you're looking for new science, all that. Okay.
Yep.
And then another question I have, so with the data that you have received, how are we using that to help us with remediation for English and math when they leave the high school? Like, how do we help those students before they leave Mattoon High School so they don't have to take a remedial class? And it might be a complicated question, I appreciate it.
Yeah. So I think a lot of the strategies that we showed those are the strategies we would use with any student who's struggling. I think the key is early identification of who those students are. So like the data you referenced today, getting really good at that, which we are, that's a growing skill. I mean, really at the high school level to have that many teachers looking at that much data, like they're doing that, and it's new to be that deep in the weeds, right? So they've always intervened. I think maybe to answer your question, it's just continuing to do that and maybe implementing those strategies that we're finding now in our review are really working for our students. So I think those are the things that we would continue to do. I don't know, Rich or anybody, if you have anything else to add more than, or
Yeah.
that's it, that's probably.
No, it would be utilizing the data that was referenced in the presentation. That includes math in addition to PSAT and SAT data. And one of the actual advancements, as in this school year, the level depth of data feedback that they give for PSAT and the SAT is significantly more descriptive, whereas going back to the ACT and even the SAT prior, did not give truly diagnostic indications of what can we do instructionally, curricularly, and skill development wise to make a big impact specifically for this individual student. Whereas now that data has done so, and now thanks to a great team, we've taken that data and broken that down, color coded it, a lot of hours, a lot of legwork, so that the teacher can literally look at their students' names and their students and specifically see. More importantly, the shift to students being able to see what they can and they can't do and what they can do about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And how what they're doing in class aligns to that. And being able to know and believe that you can influence your outcome is a tremendous thing. And that's what we have built and are building. But, as you know, being around sports, got referenced earlier, you need a lot of reps. But our students are taking to it. Our students, whether it's math and now This will be newer with PSAT and SAT data for them, because it's a new set of data. But, oh, this is how I can do something about that. And I can do something. And that student empowerment with teacher support, additional instructional support, administrative support, support from here, support from our board, from parents, from community members, that will be the change. Because as referenced, we've had better achievement prior.
So
That matters to our staff, and we believe in our students and our work and what we can do for them. And our students and our staff, we will achieve that again.
So, Rich, I'm going to jump in there. Dr. Hill, as is her habit, has made us all drink from a fire hose when it comes to information. So I'm going to challenge all the board members to take this presentation home, study it, print it out, make notes, and then in the month before our next board meeting, if we have questions about this or that, reach out to Dr. Hill or whoever it might be. And then if the board members have specific ideas on how to improve upon the improvement plan that has been put together, and I could see today at the academic systems meeting, as I've seen at the other meetings, the dedication to improving education in Mattoon can't be measured, in my view, can't be measured. And so I want to add to Ashley's thank you. Of course, I'm from here. I graduated from here. That doesn't really count. That was back when they used blackboards or maybe even etched in stone tablets. But my boys did. And if my boys were here, they would tell every teacher and administrator in this room that to the extent that they have enjoyed professional success, it is due in large part to the efforts of the people in this district. So thank you. So that's my challenge to the board. Let's take this home, let's study it, and let's work from there. I'm given the hour. I want to move on to Dr. Larson. You had unfinished business.
Yeah, question about an SOP. So if you remember the SOP that I asked if we could include when board members travel as part of just a report. So that led me to understand like what is, and Tim, we've had some emails, there's a local government 50 ILCS 150, which basically says the government wants to oversee travel expenses, and it includes school districts. And so there's a procedure and a process in which we do that. So I went to our school board compensation policy 2.125, and it says there's a roll call vote for all board members' expenses, requests for travel, meals, lodging approved by a roll call vote at an open meeting. And this is essentially what I was asking in the SOP. And so now I would just like clarification on how do we do that, Tim, as a practice as a board?
Go ahead and kick that to Ryan, because that's the report that the board receives on a monthly basis that you approve, and there's a roll call vote given for that. So
Right, so anytime somebody turns in something for reimbursement, they turn in a form, processed through our office for accounts payable, and then we reimburse them for their expenses based on the sheet that they filled out and turned in. And then, so then the board approves it when you approve the account or the bills payable at the end of the month, or at the board meeting rather.
And so I use the word voucher, and I use the wrong word because that's what we use at Easter, but you have an application, you have a voucher, and then you submit that, you get approval. So my concern is the law states that, let's say Hedges goes on a trip, he has a hotel, he has food, and he has gas or mileage. I would have no idea. I mean, we get, obviously, you know, from the report, you just see reimbursement for Ryan Gear for mileage, right? That was one of the things this time, right? But as far as like the travel, what the law is saying, we approve because we are the governing body of board members' travel. I have no idea. Like even to this day, I'm not sure who all went to the Chicago conference, how much you spent. Like that's part of what the law says, and that's for transparency and oversight. So
I think it's listed on the bills payable. If you read through those, it says transportation reimbursement. So that outlines exactly what you're talking about when you approve the bills payable list. That's what Ryan's referring to.
Correct, but it's not about a trip. It doesn't say like, here's your trip, what you're going to. And so, for example, some of the people who went to the conference, it hasn't been through yet, right? Or maybe the conference is paid in June, but the trip is in November. So to me, it doesn't feel like we're following the law in which it's described in here, which says all of this is approved before you go on a trip with a roll call vote. And I don't think we do that.
Would you like Brandon Stewart to render an opinion on whether or not we're following the law with the current process?
Well, it seems like that it's not. You could use the taxpayer dollars, but if you would like to do that,
I'm asking you, you're the ones raising the issue.
okay, let's do it.
Is that what you want?
Well, it says here that all of the expenses are outlined for approval prior to the trip, and I have yet to see one in 2.5 years.
Well, and I think, again, you've made a request that we're trying to get to, and we have this, as you are aware, based upon the email I shared back with you
Yes.
and the entire board, I think the board received this
I
as well, is that process of the request for all of 2023 is underway. It's just taken us some time because we obviously had a board meeting this week, and the staff members that work on getting this information to you have to kind of get beyond tonight, but we will get that to the board.
Do you want to see that and then we talk about it again?
I think the challenge I have is the process in which we do it. So, yes, I'll look at the data, I will correspond back, but the process says that the governing body will overview the travel before it takes place on a roll call vote. We don't do any of that. And we are the governing body, I would assume, Tim, for you and for all board members. And it's explicitly laid out here for transparency.
Sure. I think once you receive that information, that voluminous information that we'll share with you, then you can reach back out, and if there's something you'd like for us to look into, we can.
All righty. I have been slipped a note asking to recognize the Mattoon High School ag students for the Frozone, I don't even know what these are. Frozone bikes, I'm assuming that, even though they're, okay, thank you, by the way,
They're
thank you.
freeze-dried Skittles.
Thank you. If I add water to them, do they get bigger?
No, no.
Okay.
They are big already.
With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion from Erica Weaver, second from Ashley Overton. Callie, call the roll.
Overton? Yes. Weaver?
Yes.
Uphaul?
Yes.
Hedges? Armstrong?
Yes.
Larson?
Yes.
Ryder?
Yes.